And now, live from the Macon studios of News Talk 940 WMAC, it's Your Money.
Good morning, Middle Georgia, and welcome to Your Money. Randy and Sherri Goss are not here. It's just Sherri Goss today. Randy is studying for a Series 24 license because I'm a worst-case scenario planner. And I went to him about a year ago and said, you've got to get your 24 because I'm it. And if something happens to me, you can't take over this practice immediately. So he takes his test on Monday. So just say a little prayer for him. He's been studying 8 to 12 hours a day for the last month. And that's what it takes. It's a horrible test where you have to memorize what law was passed in what year and what it does. And it's stuff that you never use again, but it's just a hoop you have to jump through to do what it is that we do to become a 24. So anyways, so as financial advisors, the main thing we do, and this is if you have not heard this show before, is provide retirement planning advice and manage our clients' investment accounts. If you're looking for a financial advisor, please contact our office and set up a complimentary consultation. The office number is 478-922-8100, or you can email Randy at rfmoney.com. So you can also go to retirerelax.com and look at a number of special reports that we've written and listen to past radio show broadcasts and sign up to receive our digital feeds, which provide great information on various subjects in a short format. We also offer free seminars, so if you're a member of a church or community group and looking for a guest speaker, call us. You can just call today, 478-742-0940 if you want to be on the show. Anyways, happy Saturday. Man, it's beautiful outside. I parked way down the street and walked here, and it just feels amazing for a change. So hopefully you can get outside and enjoy a little bit of cooler weather. So the first thing I have this morning is unusual. I have a book recommendation, but this book was so good, I have to tell you about it. It's called The Horsewoman by James Patterson and Mike Lupica. It's not an action thriller, but it's a very, very good read. So check it out, The Horsewoman by James Patterson. And I already have another book I'm reading now that I'm going to probably recommend next week because it's a thriller. I can't hardly put it down. So here's a good thing to do. On October 21st, which is a Saturday, the Walk to End Alzheimer's for Central Georgia will occur at Middle Georgia State University at 100 University Parkway in Macon. Please consider joining the effort. John Rollins, who makes this stuff happens, wants to make 2023 the best walk ever and would love to have your help. Sign up to participate, form a team, or volunteer. If you want to volunteer or sign up, contact Lauren Schmidt at the Alzheimer's Association. You can reach her at 770-608-7164. And if I mention anything during the show that you didn't have a pen to write down, all you have to do is email me, Sherri, Sherri, at rfmoney.com, and I'll email you back. So the S&P closed down again this week, and there's a lot of volatility out there. I saw clients last week who Steve put in mutual funds years ago, and they are fine with that as they don't need the money. They live off their pensions and Social Security. So they brought their mutual fund statements in and were happy that they were up 10%. I had run the reports before they came in, and they were actually down over 30% with the market. However, their statement didn't show this. It only showed the year-to-date numbers. So when I showed them the 10-year chart, they were shocked to see that they were actually down. This is very confusing, so if you're invested in mutual funds, go to Yahoo Finance and enter the symbols in the top screen and see where you really are. Your statement may only tell part of the story, and realize that the only sector that is positive right now is the technology sector. Every other sector is down since the market pulled back. In a Wall Street Journal poll this week, Trump is the top choice for 60% of GOP voters. Meanwhile, voters overwhelmingly think President Biden is too old to run for re-election and give him low marks for handling the economy and other issues important to their vote. The negative views of Biden's age and performance in office help explain why only 39% of voters hold a favorable view of the president. Oil prices surged above $90 a barrel for the first time this year after Saudi Arabia and Russia, the world's second and third largest producers, said they would continue to limit output. Saudi is choking supply at about 9 million barrels per day, 25% below its declared maximum output, a regime it will maintain until the end of 2023. The same topic of oil. Biden freezes the Alaskan oil. So I talked about this a few months ago because I was so excited about them opening up drilling in this new site in Alaska. But here's what's going on now. So oil prices have climbed this week after Saudi and Russia extended their production cuts. The Biden administration's response: restrict U.S. oil and gas development. The Interior Department on Wednesday canceled 7 oil and gas leases in Alaska's Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, ANWR, and moved to limit development on 13 million acres in the state's National Petroleum Reserve. President Biden is delivering on the most ambitious climate and conservation agenda in history, says Secretary Deb Haaland. Its climate agenda is also the most lawless and economically destructive in history, and this is an opinion piece from the Wall Street Journal. Mr. Biden, on his first day in office, imposed a leasing moratorium in ANWR. Now, Ms. Haaland is revoking 7 ANWR leases issued by the Trump administration in January 2021. She claims to have the authority to cancel or suspend oil and gas leases issued in violation of a statute or regulation, and that the ANWR leases include fundamental legal deficiencies. She points to insufficient analysis under the National Environmental Policy Act, including failure to adequately analyze a reasonable range of alternatives and properly quantify downstream greenhouse gas emissions. NEPA doesn't require climate analysis. The administration has written new requirements into NEPA to scotch fossil fuel projects. The memo encouraged agencies to consult spiritual leaders and condemned methodological dogma. The best available science is whatever the climate lobby's high priests declare. Alaska Industrial Development and Export Authority plans to challenge Interior's cancellation of its ANWR leases, and its religious climate dogma may not hold up in court. Interior also claims that its proposed restrictions on oil and gas development in Alaska's National Petroleum Reserve will ensure that the entire United States Atlantic Ocean is off limits to new oil and gas leasing to protect habitat for wildlife. But developing America's fossil fuel resources and protecting the environment aren't incompatible. In any case, Vladimir Putin couldn't care less about the caribou. Russia is drilling in the Arctic and using it as a shipping route to deliver oil to China. The administration's restrictions on U.S. Arctic oil and gas development amount to unilateral energy disarmament. The Biden re-election campaign ran an ad during Thursday's NFL kickoff touting the president's economic agenda, including his supposed success in making the U.S. more energy independent. Yet his administration's relentless war on fossil fuels has left Americans more vulnerable to Mr. Putin's tender mercies and dependent on China for green energy. U.S. gasoline prices have risen 60 cents a gallon this year so far, as Saudi and Russia command the oil market. The administration flogs jobs created by its green energy subsidies, but how many more are its climate policies destroying? Unemployment in oil and gas extraction is 15% lower than before the pandemic. Sorry, Mr. President, unemployed roustabouts in Alaska aren't going to be installing solar panels in the tundra. Where is our common sense? It seems to be missing. So on Wednesday, the Treasury curve went more deeply negative after data showed the U.S. services sector expanded for an 8th straight month in August. The 10-year yield traded well below the policy-sensitive 2-year rate, pushing the spread between the two to minus 74 basis points. The moves came as Fed funds futures traders slightly nudged up the possibility of a 25 basis point rate hike by the Federal Reserve this month and factored in a small chance of another hike at the same time next year. So this is because oil prices are up, which creates inflation. In the next article, Fed's debt runoff is painless. So the Federal Reserve has now offloaded, and this is a positive, about $1 trillion of its bond holdings since it began working down its bloated balance sheet last year, with no sign of the kinds of strains in financial markets that spooked policymakers the last time they oversaw such a program. The System Open Market Account, the name for the central bank's portfolio of assets, amounts to about $7.4 trillion now, down from the record $8.4 trillion reached in April last year. And that's data from the New York Fed. As part of its steepest monetary tightening campaign in decades, the Fed is letting up to $60 billion of treasuries and $35 billion of mortgage-backed securities debt mature each month without replacement. Those shrinking holdings force the Treasury to rely more heavily on the private sector to take up federal debt. And so far, money market funds and other buyers have been happy to snap up this slew of Treasury bills Washington has been offering as a key part of its ramped-up funding requirement. The issuance was made all the bigger by the need to replenish cash after the debt limit fight. The Fed's debt runoff so far has been fairly painless, said Blake Gwynn, head of U.S. interest rate strategy at RBC Capital Markets. We just haven't seen a big impact of QT in the marketplace, he said, referring to quantitative tightening, the term for the Fed's balance sheet contraction. So the Fed's pause may not return this month. This is from a newsletter we subscribe to. The Fed can't seem to make up its mind. First, it was too slow to fight inflation, calling the spikes in prices transitory. But now that inflation is quickly coming back down to earth, the central bank is insisting on continuing its rate hikes. Even when it briefly paused, sorry. The CME's group FedWatch tool is still pricing a 93% chance that the Fed will pause again at the upcoming September meeting, but just like what happened in July, some opinions appear to be swaying. On Wednesday, former St. Louis Fed President James Bullard said the central bank needs to stick to its plan and hike one more time to push the Fed funds rate to a range from 5.5 to 5.75%. The author says, I find this incredibly frustrating. The Fed seems to say at every policy meeting that previous hikes have yet to make their way through the economy, yet instead of waiting to see them take effect, it keeps hiking anyway. Now, before he finds himself ranting, he says, my point here is that the Fed can be unpredictable, and the market's reaction to that unpredictability can be even worse. Huge swings can happen in minutes as investors try to digest what the central bank is really saying. So keep that in mind over the next 2 weeks when all eyes are once again back on the Fed. The next policy decision will be released on September 20th. The Fed's ultimate decision on continuing rate hikes will dictate how the market trades for the rest of that week and possibly even the rest of September. But first, we'll get inflation data next week, and that could help the Fed decide one way or the other. So this is why the market is down. It was down almost every day this week. It was slightly up at close yesterday, but it was down overall. As the Fed creates more uncertainty, you're going to have this going on. So if you're putting money in your 401k every month, or you're investing dollar cost averaging into an IRA or Roth, you benefit from this stuff because the market is down and you're buying everything cheaper. If you're retired, though, this is stressful because your account can't grow because nothing is up except for technology stocks and bond yields. And so it's a very difficult time for people that are retired, and we're very, very cautious in how we manage our clients' money because of these things. So we are holding back on investing any more in the stock market. We are a little overweight in the technology sector, and we have a lot of bonds that are paying very good yields because there's not a good yield to get in the stocks. So anyways, if you're interested in seeing what we're doing for our clients, all you have to do is give us a call, 478-922-8100, and we can meet with you and show you what we're doing. So here's something we learned this week. So this is amazing. Our new financial advisor, who's new to us but not new to the business, Jonathan Eisner, was in his SUV about a month ago sitting still at a red light and was hit by another car, and it caused $10,000 worth of damage. The other driver's insurance repaired the vehicle, and the estimate was that now his SUV is worth $10,000 less because it has been damaged. The guy at the body shop that did the repairs told Jonathan that he should contact the insurance carrier who paid for the work, as his vehicle now has diminished value and they owe him. I had never heard of this before, and neither had he, so here's how it works. The following article is from Ride Safe, Georgia. Understanding Georgia's diminished value law after a car accident. A car accident in Georgia can come with many questions and a great deal of confusion regarding your rights to recovery. Georgia is a fault-based insurance state, meaning you will seek damage benefits from the at-fault driver's insurance company. A settlement may pay for repairs to your vehicle, but what about when it's time to sell your car? Who will reimburse you for the diminished value of your vehicle post-crash? If you've ever checked the value of your vehicle, you'll know the survey asks if your car has ever been in an accident. Answering yes to that question, even if you've since repaired the vehicle and it looks and drives like new, will consequently drop the value of the vehicle. This is because collisions diminish the value of a vehicle sometimes by thousands of dollars, regardless of the quality of repairs. Shoppers are less inclined to purchase a vehicle that has been in an accident. Diminished value is a future loss all car accident survivors should consider when calculating their damages. Although it is not an out-of-pocket expense, it is money the claimant would have eventually received were it not for the accident. Thus, the at-fault driver or his insurance company should be liable to repay this loss. Unfortunately, most claimants don't understand or have never heard of Georgia's diminished value law. Thus, they unwittingly allow insurance companies to keep this money. Insurance companies almost never offer to pay for the diminished value of a claimant's vehicle unless the claimant asks. Insurers will intentionally keep this information to themselves if the claimant doesn't bring it up. Insurance companies have kept millions of dollars from claimants over the years by failing to disclose the diminished value law. Almost no driver bothers to mention it during a claim, often because they don't know about it or don't know how to ask. Yet it's up to you as a claimant to know about this law and act on it. Ask your insurance company about diminished value damages at the beginning of the claims process. Georgia law gives you the right to claim the amount of money you will lose due to the depreciation of the value of your vehicle if and when you decide to sell. Calculate this amount by examining the value of your vehicle before and after the crash with the help of a mechanic if necessary, then find the difference between the two. Low-quality repairs to your vehicle may further diminish its value. You could qualify for even greater compensation if someone poorly or incorrectly repairs your vehicle following a collision. And our son went through this. The body work that he had done locally in Warner Robins was horrific. The paint job was, on top of it, was even worse. We made them redo the whole thing. Once you've calculated the diminished value of your vehicle and your related future losses, take this sum to the at-fault party insurance company. List it as part of the damages you seek in your claim. Then wait for the insurance company to review your request and decide to deny or accept the amount you ask. Not all vehicles qualify for diminished value recovery in Georgia. Only vehicles with substantial market value over $7,000, greater than $500 in property damage, low to normal mileage, a clean title, and those that are less than 10 years old may qualify for this type of compensation. You will only qualify if you file your claim within the statutes of limitations. If you do qualify, the insurance company must pay the diminished value of your vehicle by law. Failure to do so may be grounds for an insurance bad faith claim. If you have questions about your claim, contact the car accident attorney for a free consultation. So you can see this article on the website retiresafegeorgia.org. A nonprofit. So Jonathan called the insurance company for the car that hit him and asked about this, and they offered him $1,000. He said no, as his auto value has now dropped by $10,000, so that is what he has asked for. We will see what they come back with. Randy was wondering if he could collect any funds from his truck having to be repaired after receiving massive dents from a recent hailstorm. I called our insurance agent, Devin Joyner, and he deferred to the underwriter, and Randy's getting a check for $397.60 just because we asked about it. And they said this type of damage to a vehicle does not cause as much diminished value as a wreck. So that's why he's only getting a small amount. So when we bought Rosenberg Financial Group 2 years ago, we flipped all of our insurance policies to Devin Joyner at Alpha Insurance, which is on in Warner Robins, just off 247 south of the base. And he made it so easy. It's because we had to insure the business practice, the building. We redid our cars, property, everything in one place. And it's just so nice to have one guy that we call for whatever we need. So anyways, he's a really nice guy. So Devin Joyner, Alpha Insurance, Warner Robins, if you want to look him up and check him out. And we're probably going to have him on a show in the future. And I called him about this, and he was helpful with this article. Anyways, the following article may not apply to any of you, but because Warner Robins made the front page of the Wall Street Journal recently for having the third fastest growing home values in the country, this is worth mentioning. Housing market inventory is so scarce that builders will be in the driver's seat for years to come, says KB Home CEO. The prevailing shortage of homes available for purchase is contributing to the persistent rise in home prices. Even as mortgage rates maintain their higher levels, the tight inventory conditions exert substantial pressure on the housing market. Zillow's forecast, revised this month, predicts that the National Zillow Home Value Index will be at 5.8% increase. Looking ahead, Zillow anticipates a continued ascent in typical home values. The forecast estimates a rise of 6.5% from July of this year to July of next year. The scarcity of available homes for sale has led to increased competition among buyers. In July 2023, the number of listed homes was just over half of what it was in the same month of 2019. Additionally, 29% fewer new listings entered the market in July compared to the pre-pandemic norm. This is crazy, and here is what is even crazier. And the article is titled, "Be Careful of the Appraisal Gap." While luxury home sales have declined in many markets, pockets of heated activity remain where inventory is scant and bidding wars are still common. If you're looking for a home in one of these markets, should you make yourself a more competitive buyer by waiving the so-called appraisal gap to entice a seller to accept your offer. Appraisal gaps, which occurred in 11% of residential transactions in June 2023, according to CoreLogic, Inc., a real estate data and services provider. arise when homes appraise for less than the contract price. They often occur in tight markets where buyers have to bid above the asking price to secure a home. For example, for a buyer putting down 20% on $1 million home, the maximum amount of the loan would be $800,000. But if the appraisal come in for $900,000, under the 80% loan-to-value ratio the buyer qualified for, the lender would only finance $720,000. If the buyer waived the appraisal gap, that means that the buyer would have to come up with $280,000 in cash to close on the $1 million home rather than the $200,000 originally anticipated. That's fine if the buyer has the additional cash on hand, but if they don't and they can't qualify for a 90% loan-to-value mortgage, they may need to back out of the deal or face the loss of their down payment. These numbers are high, but the concept is simple. If the appraisal, after you put a contract on a property, if the appraisal comes in lower than the asking price, I would back out of the deal and ask the seller to lower the price. Don't get yourself in a jam like this. And the other problem is you're buying properties at a high price now, and what's going to be the resale value when interest rates drop? I just am not a fan of this. So we're moving on to identity theft. I wonder what percentage of our listening audience received a letter from HCA Healthcare last week about hackers getting your personal information. I did. This letter is from Piedmont Hospital in Macon, where I get my mammograms. The letter offers complimentary credit monitoring, so if you receive this letter, take the time to sign up. I followed the instructions, and it was very easy, and here's what's going on. There's a surge in hospital hacks endangering patients, according to cyber officials. A record year for cyber attacks on U.S. hospitals is putting patients in danger as hospitals struggle to cope with disabled equipment and frozen data, an official from the American Hospital Association warned Thursday. Hackers, especially ransomware groups, are routinely taking down medical applications and Internet connections and freezing up patient and operations data. John Riggi, National Advisor for Cybersecurity and Risk at the AHA, is speaking at a meeting for the Healthcare Information and Management Systems Society and says, email and phones go down, backup computers generally don't work or have only about 3 days of data on them, he says. We have seen this consistently. Healthcare companies, including well-known national hospital operators, continue to be battered by hackers. Services remain disrupted at hospitals owned by private equity firm Prospect Medical Holdings since a cyber incident in early August. Prospect Medical's computer systems are now substantially back up and running as normal in many of their markets, and the hospitals and affiliated providers are continuing to provide safe, quality care for patients. Scripps Health, a large San Diego-based care provider, sent some patients to 2 emergency departments at 2 area hospitals when it was hit with ransomware in 2021. The move caused care delays and increased patient wait times at those facilities. Since January, the medical data of more than 61 million people has been stolen or exposed in more than 400 cyber attacks, according to statistics from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. This vastly outpaces activity in 2022 and 2021. The average number of patients affected in a hack is 180,000, tripling in the past 3 years. Most of the data is stolen from network servers and email accounts as opposed to electronic medical records. That these attacks also disable radiology, scanning, and other equipment used to diagnose strokes and treat cancer is worrying. Often, cyber attacks are viewed as white-collar crimes, but as they continue to broadly disrupt healthcare delivery, they represent a risk to patient safety. Hospitals must plan for 3 to 4 weeks of downtime in the event of a cyber attack, which should include working with nearby healthcare providers to accept critical patients who can't be treated while systems are unavailable. U.S. government agencies, including the Federal Bureau of Investigations and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, have begun to treat cyber attacks in healthcare as threat-to-life crimes. That means using offensive tactics to proactively interrupt hacker infrastructure. So if you're concerned about this, consider putting a credit freeze on your credit reports, which is free. Just realize that if you do this, you will likely experience a delay in applying for new credit like a mortgage or a loan. To request a credit freeze, go to each credit reporting agency, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, and request a freeze, or call them and request one. If you go to Clark.com and type credit freeze in the search bar, it will lead you to an article titled Credit Freeze and Thaw Guide that provides the online links for doing the credit freeze and the 800 numbers for each the same. Clark.com and just type credit freeze in the search bar. Anyways, we're already at the 9:30 mark. What the heck? This thing is going fast. So you've been listening to Your Money with Sherri Goss. I'm with Rosenberg Financial Group, and if you'd like to call in today and contribute to this show, the number is 478-742-0940. Rosenberg Financial Group has offices in Macon and Warner Robins, and you can learn more about us by visiting our website, retirerelax.com. We have for complimentary consultations, and setting up an appointment is easy. You just call our office at 478-922-8100. So, on top of all the cyber attacks, you have employee health plans that are going up. Costs for employer coverage are expected to surge around 6.5% for 2024, according to major benefits consulting firms Mercer and Willis Towers Watson, which provided their survey results exclusively to the Wall Street Journal. Such a boost could add significantly to the price tag for employer plans that already average more than $14,600 a year per employee. We've got a phone call. Good morning. You're on with Sherri. Hello?
Good morning, Sherri.
Hey, good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good for an old wedding officiant.
So what are you up to?
Where am I headed today? I'm going to Lanier Island Resort today for an awesome wedding.
Oh, nice.
But you're talking about the diminished value. I had to give a testimony because thank God for my late aunt. She worked for insurance like 20-something years, and I hit a deer up in South Dakota with my 2017 Kia. And, the vehicle, I think, was $28,000 was what I paid for it. Mm-hmm. The insurance ended up between rental cars and shipping and getting my car back here and all that, been like $22,000. I don't know why they totaled it in the beginning, but yeah, so that diminished value thing, my aunt told me about it, and
amazing.
I got back the what you call it, man? The copay.
The deductible.
Yeah, I basically got that back, so that was very helpful, and I would have never ever known it without my aunt.
I've never heard of this in my life.
Yeah,
I'm 62 years old. I've been driving a long time, and I've been in multiple wrecks, and I've been hit by other people, and I've never heard it. No one's ever told me about this.
Yeah, I'm trying to go back in time, see if we can get some refunds on.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to let that happen.
Yeah, but yeah, so it does work, and it is there, and I had never heard of it before until.
How did your aunt knew about it?
Because she worked for.
Oh, she was an insurance person.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Farmers. Okay. Yeah, so. All right, that's all.
Okay.
Have a super awesome day.
Have a great weekend. Have a nice trip today, too. Sounds like fun. So, employer health plans. So, let me see here. For people who have individual insurance plans sold under the Affordable Care Act, premiums are also expected to rise by about 6% next year, according to public insurance filings analyzed by health research nonprofit KFF, though that increase is comparable to this year's. Among the factors leading to the faster health insurance cost growth are hospitals' higher labor costs and heavy demand for new and expensive diabetes and obesity drugs. So I'm not a fan of these obesity drugs. And I surely don't understand. They're very expensive, so I don't understand why health plans are covering them. And I understand the concept of if you can help your employees lose weight, they might be able to come off of blood pressure medication. They might be able to come off their diabetes medication. I understand all those concepts, but the cases that I've seen so far with these obesity drugs have not been positive. And they want you to be on this stuff for the rest of your life. They don't want you to just lose 10 pounds, 20 pounds. They want you to keep taking it. And so to make other people who exercise, eat healthy, and maintain a normal weight, to make those people pay extra so that other people can take a pill instead of controlling their diet does not make any sense to me. And if you have a differing opinion, I'd love to hear it because I don't understand this whatsoever. So anyways, I think people that are healthy, if people that are going to be on the obesity drug, I think they should pay more. But if you're a healthy person that doesn't need it and you take good care of yourself, I think you should get a discount. I think that's the only fair thing. But making everybody pay more, to me, is egregious. So you might want to complain to your healthcare provider if you're in a company that's going through this. So the employer plan increases are expected to strike businesses of all sizes, and regardless of whether they rely on an insurer to handle their health coverage or are self-insured. The prices hospitals negotiate with health insurance companies are a major driver of high medical costs. Many workers will learn about the coverage options for 2024 in the next few months during the annual fall open enrollment period. They will likely end up paying more out of their paychecks for it as the overall expense goes up, and some employers lift out-of-pocket costs to help offset the increases. Yet many employers are expected to take on the lion's share of the increase, partly due to a labor market that remains tight in many sectors. I would guess that this would create an opportunity for people to look for a job that provides better benefits for their family. I just met with a client who has been working for the U.S. Postal Service for about 6 months and is getting ready to have her own mail route. She is making $70,000 a year delivering mail now in her own car, and once she gets her own route, she will get a $5 an hour raise. And she's already on the health plan, which has been fantastic, and will soon start earning a pension. So there are other options out there. If you're stuck in a job with rotten benefits, go do something about it, because there are openings everywhere. So anyways, there's lots of opportunities. There's billboards even on I-75 advertising jobs. I think it's down to 1 or 2 now. It used to be like 5 out there, but still I hear from everyone that owns a business that comes to see me, they can't hire enough people that will actually show up and do a job. So if that's you, you have a lot of opportunities. So do you have someone in your life who is lonely or has dementia or is in a facility? This is a great article. So robotic pets. So I worked in a nursing home. That was my first job right out of college, and I was an activity director, and it was a really tough job, and I had a lot of very lonely people. I had some people that were a lot of people that were bedridden, a lot of people that were wheelchair bound. They couldn't mobilize themselves anywhere, and we really only had about 5 people out of 109 that could move themselves from place to place easily with a wheelchair. And I found that people who came in that were ambulatory within months would be in a wheelchair because of the situation that they were in. So here's something that may help. If you have someone like that in your life, if you're a caregiver or you have a family member that's in a facility, this is for you. Robotic pets make some people squeamish. Should man's best friend run on batteries? We've had plenty of naysayers tell us this is a little weird, says Ted Fisher, co-founder and CEO of Ageless Innovation, a company that creates products for older adults, including animatronic dogs and cats. But all you have to do is watch what happens when someone gets one, he insists. When the cat rolls over for the first time, people go crazy. The lifelike companions, sold under the brand named Joy for All, cost under $140. They respond to motion and touch. The cats vibrate when they purr. The dogs wag their tails and have a gentle heartbeat. A number of studies have found that such fuzzy, mess-free friends can reduce their owners' feelings of loneliness, anxiety, and depression. For elderly patients with dementia, spending 20 minutes with a robotic pet 3 times a week has been shown to improve their mood and curb the need for pain and behavior medication. Nearly 30 states, as well as many Medicare Advantage organizations, Medicaid health plans, and Veterans Affairs hospitals now offer robotic pet therapy for isolated seniors, and over 500,000 of Ageless Innovations cats and dogs are in circulation. Dozens of people tell us the pet was so important to the older adult that they were buried with it, says Fisher. In 2014, Fisher heard from Brian Goldner, then the CEO of Pawtucket-based Hasbro, whom he knew socially and professionally from his investing banking days. The game giant, maker of Monopoly, Play-Doh, and Transformers action figures, wanted someone to lead a team to find new markets for existing toys and games. His team saw potential in Fur Real Friends, an animatronic toy Hasbro had released decades ago for young girls but which people were buying for aging parents. In 2018, he and his team left to found Ageless Innovations with the help from private investors. He says, I went on Amazon to check these out, and the cat I looked at was named Bootsy. She purrs when you rub her head and can raise her eyebrows. She has a light sensor that allows her to respond when you simply wave at her. I can see how this pet would be a great companion for someone in memory care or in a nursing home. They would never want to let go of it. Bootsy costs $75. Go-Go the puppy can be walked on a leash and will sit when you ask. $44 is cheap for something this cute, so check it out. Fur Real Friends are sold on Amazon. If I was an activity director today, I would have a few of those, and I'd be walking around all day with them. So here's something past its expiration date. The expiration date itself, and I learned something when I read this article. I've never heard of this. So numbers are bad because they mislead. Expiration dates on our food are worse. They're downright destructive. Food experts broadly agree that the expiration dates on every box of crackers, can of beans, and bag of apples waste money and squander perfectly good food. Ah, but those food safety regulations keep us safe, you might say. Yet in almost all cases, there is no regulation, and the dates do nothing to keep us safe. Contrary to a common perception, those dates are not about safety. That is not why they're there. That's not what they're doing, says Martin Weidman, a professor for food safety and food science at Cornell University. For many foods, we could completely do away with it. Although we call them expiration dates, most don't actually claim anything is expiring or unsafe. Instead, the labels say fresh until, display until, best when used, better if used by, sell by, best by, enjoy by, best before, or perhaps the worst, provide a date with no explanation at all. And this is funny because I just threw away a bunch of food from my shelf, from the pantry, that had expired dates. And they were canned goods, which was probably stupid. I should have kept them, but I've just been trained to look at these dates, and I didn't know the difference. The dates originated as a coded system for manufacturers to communicate to retailers when to rotate stock. Consumers clamored for information on the freshness of food, and in the 70s and 80s, consumer-facing dates became widespread, though never standardized. Food manufacturers have tried, largely in vain, to explain that these are mostly general indicators of when food is at its peak quality. Most foods, properly stored, remain edible and safe long after their peak. Since 2017, FMI has encouraged members to coalesce around just two labels. Best if used by, which indicates the product might not taste quite as good after that date but is still safe, and used by for those cases where the food might actually be unsafe, such as meat from a deli counter. U.S. consumers are wildly confused about the label's intent. In a 2019 paper, researchers at Johns Hopkins University and Harvard found 84% of consumers threw out food at the package date at least occasionally, while 37% did so always or usually, though that wasn't what the labels recommended. Over half thought date labeling was federally regulated or were unsure. An earlier study found that 54% of people thought eating food past a sell-by date was unsafe. In fact, with the exception of infant formula, the labels aren't federally mandated and the food isn't unsafe. While old food eventually tastes bad, it's unlikely to be dangerous, especially if it's cooked. So this misunderstanding is one reason Americans waste a colossal amount of perfectly good food. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has estimated that 31% of the available food supply goes uneaten, and retailers discard 43 billion pounds of food, consumers a further 90 billion, which is insane. So check your produce. If it's still good, don't worry about the date. That's what this is saying. The date doesn't matter. It's not even about that. I'd never heard of this in my life. So back to a different subject. Gen Z is dragging their feet going back to offices they've barely known, but retired boomers can't wait. The Labor Day return to office crunch might be a shock to Gen Z workers who launched their careers from their couch, but there's another segment of the workforce that's had enough of the couch potato life, retired boomers. Nearly half, 44% of current retirees have plans to reenter the workforce or are strongly considering it, according to a June 2023 study by Fidelity and Guaranty Life Insurance Company. With the current average U.S. retirement age hovering around 64, that means those coming out of retirement are almost entirely baby boomers. To be sure, a healthy portion of those folks are likely pursuing work for economic reasons. Perhaps they assumed that they'd saved adequately for retirement, only to realize their expenses vastly outweighed their savings. Good morning. You're on with Sherri. Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing now?
I'm doing really good. How are you?
Yeah, doing fine. This is Robin Jackson from Perry, Georgia. Said you got it by yourself today there.
I do. He's home studying like a maniac.
Well, that's good because, like I said, I'm not going to say hoping, but I'm sure that he's going to pass it and going to do a great job at it. But
thank you.
I do consider those tests as a form of discrimination, as far as that's all they're used for, to keep people out of the market. And just a certain amount that they're going to, let go into the market. So it is just another form of discrimination. And I have taken that test before myself, too.
The 24?
Well, it's in order to,
or the 6. The 6 and 63?
Well, you're right, one of those. So,
okay.
But anyway, I wanted to get
They're
off
horrible.
That. You're right, they are.
And they don't even make sense. It's like memorizing dates that laws were passed. You can look it up on the internet if you need to know that. That's my problem with testing today is it doesn't make you a better person. It's just a hoop you have to jump through to get to the next place. And not everybody has the brain that can memorize all that kind of stuff, but they would be really good at the job. I agree with you.
Well, you're right, and again, I said that's why it's a form of discrimination because they're not really measuring any knowledge in which as far as that you can remember that we're all well and good. It's almost like when the teacher's not teaching math. If they figure that you can use a calculator, then why try to teach you how to add, subtract, and multiply? Because, like I said, nowadays everything is going to Google. If you want to know the answer to anything, just Google it up. Or if you want to figure out any math, just get you a calculator. But anyway, I called to say as far as this COVID-19 that is spreading again.
Right.
And I'm just not to doing an advertising, but I'm just making a suggestion to the people that to just get a Alka-Seltzer Plus cold tablet and take one of those when you feel like you're getting that COVID or I already have it. That is remarkable good as far as not having to go into the doctor or anything else. I know that many people who take that Alka-Seltzer Plus feel pretty good a day or two after. So and also the ventilator as far as this was when COVID first started out, many people was dying of these ventilators, and I'm really kind of surprised that the hospital didn't quite catch on to what was happening. Is that if you can't breathe out your nose and putting a ventilator on there, it's not going to help you whatsoever. Just try to get the patient to start breathing out of their mouth. So if they can't breathe out of their nose because it may be stuck, all stopped up, but just try to breathe out of your mouth. And then I'm not going to hold you any longer. I think you're doing an excellent job, and we're looking to have Randy back next week and passing the test. So congratulations to him already in advance, and to you, continue the great job, okay?
Well, thank you so much for the tips. So this is interesting. So I had a doctor appointment recently, and they do my blood work, and I get my blood work in the mail, and it shows that I'm still have the antibodies for COVID. And I don't know why everybody isn't looking at that, so I'm not worried about it, and I'm not going to wear a mask. And, I mean, I've had it once, and I guess it's probably 3 years ago, but I still have the antibodies, and it seems like we'd be paying attention to something like that than just reacting and jumping around and starting to mandate masks again. I just don't get this, but anyways. Back to Gen Z or retirees going back to work. The latest jobs report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics supports this, as the unemployment rate actually ticked up slightly to 3.8%, with economists finding a good reason for it. More people were looking for work in August, meaning a technically higher unemployment rate. And this is where these numbers get screwy. So when the unemployment rate goes up, you're thinking, oh, people have lost their jobs. But in this case, it's not that at all. It's because more people are actually in the market looking for jobs. You have to be careful what you believe when you just see a number. Anyways, the unretiring trend has been a long time coming. Last spring, CNBC said the combined forces of a booming labor market, soaring inflation, and fading COVID fears were the main impetus for boomers to dust off their business casual garb. Unretirement, which saw a similar jolt following the 2008 financial crisis, is emblematic of the labor market overall, which is seeing increased labor force participation for a broad swath of workers, according to CNBC. Even now, and is likely to gain greater momentum as offices, at least some of them, fill up in earnest. According to a February 2023 study by Paychex, 1 in 6 retirees said they're considering returning to work, but just 20% of them said they were seeking a fully in-person job. The majority of retirees told Paychex they returned to work for obvious reasons. They needed more money, but other factors were also top of mind. More Paychex respondents said they were unretiring because they were bored or lonely, and more so than the inflation problem. James Reed, CEO of UK-based recruitment firm Reed, told Fortune in January how critical it is for companies to overcome ageism. The skill set that older workers offer, including a different yet valuable perspective on workplace decisions and a substantial level of experience, should not be understated. Older workers are invaluable, and companies should think creatively about appealing to this group. But it's not all such a tragic tale. While some would say that the thought of boomers applying for a job would be demoralizing or a grim reflection on the state of the U.S. economy, the unretirees themselves don't feel that way. The top three emotions associated with returning to the workforce for paycheck were happy, 60%, energized, 50%, and excited, 48%. In a 2022 jobless survey, the majority of unretirees, 60%, said they were simply looking for something to do. That something could be more meaningful than it sounds. Jackie Ansher, a 60-year-old spin instructor, told the New York Times she felt forced into early retirement when COVID lockdowns shuttered fitness studios. Returning to the bike, she said, returning to her sense of identity. It's about my mental health, she said. For me, it's about preserving me. I totally get it. I'm 62, and I can't imagine being retired. I love what I do, which makes all the difference. And so if you're burned out in your job and you're 62, think about another opportunity. You don't have to retire. It's an option. And if we're going to live another 20 years, why not do something purposeful, meaningful, or maybe even go back to school? I have a client that is in her 60s, and she just finished her master's degree and is becoming a counselor, not a guidance counselor in a school, but basically a therapist. And she just got her first job about 6 months ago, and she is so excited about her future and about making a difference in other people's lives, and she doesn't care about her age. She took a totally new offshoot in life, and it's something she's always wanted to do, and she could afford to do it because she could use some of her investment money to pay for college, and she's out there doing what she wants to do, so and loving it and excited about every day. So if you're not excited about every day when you get up, you're bored, you're burned out, you're tired, you're watching too much TV, maybe you look online for a job. Maybe you even want to go tutor for a company like Wyzant, like one of my clients does. She's tutoring online, teaching children in China how to speak English, teaching grammar. There's so many things out there that you could do to make a difference, or even volunteer. Do something purposeful with your day so that at the end of the day you feel good about how you spent your time. So anyways, Louis DeJoy's ambitious plans for America's Postal Service. The Post Service has been a concern of mine for a long time, and we have a number of clients that have retired from the Postal Service. I watch the metrics and the numbers of the Postal Service that don't seem sustainable. So this is fascinating about the guy that has basically turned the Postal Service around. Ask the average American what the National Institute of Standards and Technology does, or where the closest Department of Agriculture Service Center is, and you'll probably get a blank stare. But everyone knows what the United States Postal Service, USPS, does and where the nearest post office is. No federal agency is more recognizable or older. The USPS predates the Declaration of Independence, which I did not know that. Oddly, therefore, although most Americans would have no problem exclaiming at least roughly what the president does or who the first one was, doing the same for Postmaster General would be trickier. The first was better known for other achievements, such as inventing the lightning rod and helping draft the Declaration of Independence. Louis DeJoy, who has held the office for just over 3 years, is the 75th chief. If he is less obscure than his predecessors, that stems from the politically fraught period in the middle of a pandemic immediately before the 2020 election, during which he took office. In office, Mr. DeJoy has proved to be effective and ambitious. A generous donor to Republicans generally, and Donald Trump in particular, he was the first Postmaster General in decades to take the helm without rising through the USPS ranks. Just weeks before he was appointed, then President Trump called the USPS, which because of COVID-19 was about to play an unusually large role in the coming election, a joke, and soon afterward mused about withholding funding to prevent postal voting. Protesters went postal, demonstrating outside DeJoy's homes in Washington, D.C. and North Carolina. The fear was that he would interfere with postal voting, throwing the election to Mr. Trump. Undeterred by the fact that this did not happen, some Democrats are still sending out fundraising emails about removing him. When he took office, the USPS, which delivers 44% of the world's total mail volume and is largely self-funded, was in trouble. It had enough cash to last just 60 days and was projected to lose $20 billion in 2020 and $160 billion by 2030. The problem was twofold. First, the volume of first-class mail, which includes letters, postcards, bills, and lightweight packages, had declined markedly from roughly 103.7 billion pieces in 2001 to 52 billion in 2020. It has continued falling. Even with increased package volumes, that shift led to a 36% revenue decline from 2007 to 2020. Second, because of a law passed in 2006, the U.S. Postal Service, uniquely among federal agencies, must pre-fund their health benefits it provides for its retired workers. The intent was to ensure that such benefits existed in the future. The result was billions of dollars in annual losses for the USPS. Combine those two factors with the statutory requirements to deliver the mail to 165 million addresses 6 days a week, charging someone in a house next to a post office in a city the same as someone at the end of a dirt road in Alaska, and it is easy to see how solvency worries might arise. These problems were not new, but, says Mr. DeJoy, nobody did a thing. Congress sees the losses going on and on and on, and they were just watching it happen. Inside the USPS, Mr. DeJoy says there was no strategy to do anything to fix it. The organization was beset by drift, and we've always done it this way mentality. Mr. DeJoy, who ran a logistics company that was sold for $650 million in 2014, responded as any private sector boss would, by looking for places to cut costs and improve efficiency. His initial steps provoked outrage. He argued that removing dismantled mail sorting machines made sense because they took up space better used for sorting packages. Some feared the removal would slow ballot processing. He suspended the move. Mr. DeJoy's style can be brash and combative, but he has not destroyed the USPS. Quite the opposite. The 2020 election went off without a hitch, at least without a mail-based hitch. In 2022, the USPS delivered 750 million COVID tests, and from January 21 to April 23, average mail delivery times fell by more than 24 hours. Last year, he helped pass legislation with bipartisan support, and included measures such as better health benefits programs for staff and guaranteed 6-day-a-week delivery. It repealed the onerous rule about pre-funding retirement benefits, established a public-facing dashboard on its performance, and allowed the USPS to team up with other government agencies to offer money-making non-postal services, potentially opening the way to postal banking. The slings and arrows Mr. DeJoy suffered during his appointment gave him credibility with the right that a boss who came up through the ranks and was a union member might have lacked. That was just the second year of his tenure. The remainder will be taken up by implementing his Delivering for America plan to put the USPS on a stabler financial footing. Some parts will be unpopular. Relying more on trucks, which the UPS owns, rather than planes, which it does not, may mean that sending letters and packages across the country will take longer. Consolidation means some neighborhoods may lose their post offices. Though price rises may be necessary, nobody likes paying more. Mr. DeJoy still has his critics. Jerry Connolly, a Democratic congressman who chaired the subcommittee overseeing the USPS, calls his reform plans reckless and a road to ruin. Still, most people like the USPS. In a recent survey, its favorability rating was 77%, exceeding every federal agency except the National Park Service. The rise of e-commerce and decline of letter writing have shifted the assumptions behind its business model, which suggests its operations must change too. The changes may not be the right ones, but they are better than denial and drift. I totally agree with all of that. It is time for change. And so what's interesting is this article came from The Economist, which is a global website. It didn't come from a U.S. entity, but it's positive about us. But you're not seeing it anywhere that you're looking. So I just had to share that with you. Anyways, thanks for listening to Your Money, and I'm sorry you've been listening to my voice for an hour now. I know that gets kind of boring, but Randy will be back next week. So we work for Rosenberg Financial Group, and as financial advisors, the main thing we do is provide retirement planning advice and manage our clients' investment accounts. If you're looking for a financial advisor, please contact our office to set up a complimentary consultation. Our office number is 478-922-8100, and you can learn more about us by visiting our website, retirerelax.com. If you have questions or topics you'd like us to cover in next week's broadcast, email Randy at rfmoney.com. So go to our website, retirerelax.com, and click on the special reports. And you can go through, there's a really good one about when to apply for Social Security and understanding how that works. It walks you through everything about it. And I had a call from a WMAZ viewer this week about Social Security spousal benefits. She's a divorced spouse and wonders if she can apply for her husband's and then later apply for hers. That is all explained in the special report on retireerelax.com. The other thing that's on the special report tab is my life book. If you're thinking you need to get your affairs in order and you need a guide, all you have to do is download the life book, print out the pages, start filling them out. It walks you through the entire process. So with all that, it's time to go. Not yet? Yes? Just 1 second? Well, with that, I hope you can get outside and get some fresh air this weekend. It looks beautiful outside. And thank you so much for listening. We appreciate all of you very much.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Osaic Wealth Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Osaic Wealth is separately owned and other entities.